Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Tony. Woo.
Hello and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, a registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. I'm very excited for you guys to meet our next guest. It is Ester Blum. She's a registered dietitian and functional medicine dietitian as well. And we are going to have a really, really great conversation all about perimenopause and menopause and how it affects your hormones and your sleep. So if you're struggling with this or your mother's struggling with this, it's definitely an episode you want to tune into. But before we get into that, Esther, welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. Please introduce yourself to the listeners.
Okay, Tony, thanks for having me. So I'm an integrative dietitian. I'm the mom of a boy who is now 13 years old, and I love to cook and listen to a lot of 80s music by our fire pit. And we have a rescue dog we got a year ago. So life is good.
Awesome. I love that. What kind of dog do you have?
We think he's a Boglin Terrier, which is Boston Terrier and Beagle mix.
Oh, wow.
But he is like the mush pile of love. He's really fantastic.
I love that. Pets are everything. I really do. They make the day better.
They do.
Anyways, one question I always ask people is to introduce yourself by saying who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do. So you pretty much covered who you are, which is great. Tell us a little bit more about what it is you do as a registered dietitian and kind of why you went that route.
So I help people get clear and decisive on what to eat so they can lose weight and heal from chronic illness. I went that route. I spent the first 5 years of my career working as a hospital dietitian and worked in, all the cardiac care units in the ICU, and really didn't feel like I was making a difference after 5 years. So I went to a cocktail party. My mother had a guest there who said, what do you know about vitamins and minerals? And I was like, in spite of having 2 degrees, nothing. And so she said, my strength coach is a functional medicine practitioner and went through this amazing holistic coach. And at the time, my grandfather had given me money to pay off my student loans. And I was like, can I please parlay that into another functional medicine training course? So he said, sure. So I took that and then left the hospital within the year and worked for functional medicine doctor and really never looked back. And, diet alone is lovely, but it's not solving the problems. We just have too many nutrient deficiencies from the soil. We are exposed to a tremendous amount of electropollution from, our cell phones and technology and just our high stress lifestyle. In a world without stress, Tony, we would not need the supplements we need, but the supplements, the lack of sleep, the stress, the lack of sleep, all of that really causes our bodies to need a lot more than we're getting. And the food that we're eating now has much less nutrition, far fewer nutrients than it did, when our grandparents were alive. And it's interesting because I went into nutrition. I was interested in nutrition because my grandfather, he was an ENT, and he taught my grandmother, she was a hospital dietitian at Bellevue. He taught her how to be the anesthesiologist, and the two of them took my tonsils out in their house in Flatbush, Brooklyn. They had a waiting room for patients. They had a treatment room. They had an operating room, and then a 12-bed pediatric recovery room and 2 adult beds as well. So I just thought it was very normal to sleep over my grandparents' house and wake up and go downstairs and go get my tonsils taken out. I didn't have a hospital stay until I gave birth to my son as an adult.
Wow.
So it was pretty cray. And then when I told my grandfather I was going to be a dietitian, he was like, why would you ever do that? Why would you not go to medical school? You're so stupid. You're never going to make any money. You're never going to be a success. And I was like, yeah, watch me. And my father was a dermatologist and my mother was a nurse. And my father said, if you don't want to go into this, don't do it. So I declined medical school.
Wow. It's very interesting, and so you're still kind of in the medical field. You're just not working you're noticing that you're kind of filling in that other piece of the puzzle that I think is often neglected. So yeah.
Yes. And, the people I see have already been to no less than 5 other practitioners and sometimes 10 and have been failed again and again. And these are people, and I do not disrespect any of these fields. I know amazing practitioners in all of them, but these are people who are seeing functional medicine doctors, naturopathic physicians, traditional Western medicine doctors, and they're falling through the cracks. They're not getting the right testing done. They're not being advised properly, and they're all often told, sadly, this is normal for your age. And OBGYNs too. This is a normal part of aging. This is normal for your age. And go, take a yoga class. Or when I was searching for answers to my own healthcare struggles, I was told, one doctor literally told me to take Xanax and put a copy of the Kabbalah under my pillow. And I was like, I don't think either of those things are going to heal me. Ouch. So it was really bad. So we've all had, horror stories. And I really teach my patients to be their own health advocates, because the doctor of the future is the patient. And women especially need to seriously speak up and say, nope, this is unacceptable. You've got to keep finding the answers, or find a practitioner who will fight for you better than you will fight for yourself even.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think, there's unfortunately, there are some amazing doctors, dietitians, OBGYN, they're there, but then there are some, it's just either not enough, or they just have bias when they're not supposed to. And it can be really challenging and really frustrating for somebody who's suffering and wanting help and keeps finding that resistance or not really getting what they want. And then each time they even though they're suffering, they're less likely to reach out for the help that they need. So I hear you, but if you feel like, what you're doing is really helping people realize there actually is an end, or there is a relief to the pain or the struggle or whatever it is that you're going through. So thank you for that. I think that's really great. One thing that we were talking about before that I definitely want to talk about now is, and also what you just said is, part of the aging process, particularly for women, obviously, when we're talking about menstruation, is they go through perimenopause and then menopause. And in that time, it can be really challenging for them. They can have night sweats. They can have trouble sleeping. They can have a lot of anxiety. They can be moody. Lots of stuff is going on. And from what you're saying is that although it is normal in the aging process, but that doesn't have to be your normal. So I would love for you to expand on that and maybe share a little bit more about what's actually going on and what can somebody who's struggling with those symptoms do.
Yeah. And so often what's going on at the root of all of this, and I do a lot of testing, so it's case by case, but a lot of what's going on is a couple of things. One is estrogen dominance, where, we're seeing acne on the chin and we're starting to get night sweats and hot flashes. Some of that can be true estrogen dominance, and some of that can be falling progesterone levels. So you have relative estrogen dominance there. And, your breasts are tender and you're getting bad cramps and you're not sleeping well, and all of those so unfun things. We actually go into perimenopause and we come out on the other side of perimenopause, like backing out of puberty, basically. Like the symptoms you've got going into it, you're now going to get on the way out a lot of the times. So also testosterone levels seem to decline, which we need so much for muscle and building muscle and staying lean and fit. So we tend to pack on body fat. So a lot of women will say, I feel like overnight, I woke up and put on 10 pounds, like the minute my period stopped. You can also see, irregular periods. You can see them shorten in duration. You can see a heavier flow, or you can see them increase in time between your cycles. So again, all of these things are falling into play as your hormones rise and fall. Your cortisol levels may also come up. And this is something that happens, I believe, to the lifestyle and age we're at. A lot of us are sandwiched right now in our 40s. Our kids are young, our parents are aging, and our careers are taking off. And we have this trifecta of stress and challenges at that time. And, our cortisol can not only peak and fall, which it should peak and fall during the day, but for a lot of clients who I see on their tests, their cortisol is super high out of the gate, like literally off the chart before they've even put their feet on the floor in the morning and gotten out of bed. And their metabolized cortisol is staying high all the time. So it's really, it's a challenge for people to sleep. It's a challenge for them to not feel irritable and moody, because who on earth is at their best self when they're not sleeping? And their muffin top turns into a cake top overnight, and muscle changes, loss can really happen quickly.
Yeah. So basically all of those different hormones, increase in cortisol, decrease in testosterone, decrease in estrogen, they're all going to basically affect your body weight, your mood, your energy, your sleep. And it's not just one's happening, they're all happening together, which is why it can feel really, really uncomfortable and just something that you want to change or you want to fix. So what are like a few things that someone can do to help, maybe if you want to go maybe by each one, maybe increase their testosterone or manage their estrogen, maybe if we could go like one by one. I think that would be helpful.
Well, first of all, you want to test. And the problem is a lot of testing is done with blood, which is like a snapshot taken, okay, what's happening in your body at 8 a.m. at Quest Lab, God knows where in your cycle, right? Or it's a saliva test, maybe, which is done over, 4 hours, or 1 or 2 samples here and there. They're random. So you really want to make sure you test. So I use what's called the Dutch test, and a Dutch test looks at 7 different types of estrogen, 7 progesterones, 7 testosterones, and not only the levels in your body, but how they relate to each other. What are their ratios as related to each other, A, and B, how are they being metabolized in your body? Are they floating around? Are they being excreted? If you're estrogen dominant, they're not. Your detoxification pathways, your methylation pathways can really be off. So you want to make sure that those are up and running, and your diet's really great, and that can be super helpful. And so same with testosterone, you want to make sure, your adrenals are functioning. So you can produce enough testosterone, and you're lifting weights and eating enough protein, doing some resistant training. That can make a big difference as well. And then we also look at rising cortisol and metabolized cortisol, and we look at all the neurotransmitters in your brain, because a lot of people suddenly get anxiety in their 40s who've never had it before. Mm-hmm. And we say, and I test this with men too. I use this test too. So that's why I say people versus just women, but get terrific anxiety, and the neurotransmitter balance can get off if your gut health is off, if your adrenals are off. So all of these interplay with each other. So let's just start with estrogen dominance. A lot of us are estrogen dominant. First of all, you want to look at lifestyle. You want to decrease your exposure to plastics, especially as they are touching your food. Even if they're BPA free, they can leach into your food and displace estrogen at the receptor cell point. So that means buying glass Tupperwares. Amazon has great ones that go from the freezer to the oven to the dishwasher. So I like them way better than plastic. We don't have plastic Tupperwares unless they house crayons and tools around the house. But you want to switch to also metal drinking bottles. Don't heat or cook in anything that is not safe. So make sure your cookware is BPA free. Like if you have a nonstick pan, you can use ceramic lined pan. You can use anodized aluminum. You can use cast iron. You can use stainless steel, clay, glass. All of those are chemically inert. And cast iron pan, you can leach some iron into the pan, but for most women, that's beneficial. Or into your food, pardon me. Second of all, you want to make sure you're getting a lot of fiber. Fiber binds and detoxes estrogen beautifully. So that means 2 tablespoons of chia seeds in a shake, and some yogurt, on cottage cheese. I make chia pudding and have that every day, where it's just, some almond milk, some chia seeds, some cinnamon, and maybe stevia. But fiber is incredible. You also want to eat foods from the brassica family. There's a supplement called DIM, which I use to detoxify estrogen, and it's concentrated indoles from broccoli. So broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, artichokes, all of those are going to detox your liver in an amazing way and help your liver remove estrogen and help it safely be excreted from the body.
Okay, awesome. And then what about testosterone?
Yeah, so testosterone, a natural way to help boost testosterone is to take zinc. Zinc is a precursor to testosterone. You need adequate zinc to make testosterone. Most of us do not get enough zinc. We know this because a lot of us have reflux, and you need zinc to keep that pyloric sphincter closed in your stomach, so the acid doesn't come up from your stomach into your esophagus. But you want to make sure that you are getting, a lot of people take 25 milligrams zinc. If you're really deficient, it can take a long time to replete your zinc. So I would make sure you're getting, 20, 30 milligrams like 3 times a day with food. You'll see your libido come right up, which shuts down for a lot of women in menopause. Libido just falls flat. Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure that your libido is sustained, because that is just one of the perks of being partnered up with someone, or just being by yourself and having a grand old time. You also want to make sure that you are eating zinc-rich foods. Oysters are a wonderful source of zinc, as is red meat. Red meat is the best source of zinc. Most people are very afraid of red meat. There's a myth, there's a misconception, and wildly rampant misinformation, incorrect interpretation of studies that red meat is bad and causes early death and is going to rot in your colon and all this other nonsense. So make sure you're getting good red meat. Make sure that you are doing resistance training 2 to 3 times a week. Yoga is helpful, but it's not enough resistant training unless you're seriously an accomplished yogi and doing headstands.
You've had to do like an hour of yoga 5 to 6 days a week to get the same benefits of 2 to 3 times a week of just doing like 20 to 30 minutes of resistance training.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So, and I don't want to spend 5 hours a week doing yoga. I want to walk outside and then spend 20 minutes doing resistant training, 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and if you don't even have to lifting heavy is the goal, but let's say you don't have the energy for it, you don't have the bandwidth, or you're just starting out, you're a newbie, and you're, just starting with 3 or 5 pound weights, just stimulating the contraction of the muscle enough to ignite hormone production. And for women especially, you really want to focus on upper body to make testosterone. I had a woman who came to me in her 40s when I was in my 20s, and she said, my testosterone is really low. I want to raise it. So we added in resistance training for her. And then at the time, I wasn't even doing the Dutch. I was just doing a blood test. And we saw her testosterone come up on the blood test after 6 months. So I thought that is so cool. I mean, and there's studies that show people even in their 90s who do strength training can build muscle. Yeah. But I also want to say this, okay, another precursor to healthy testosterone and growth hormone and insulin management is building muscle. Muscle is the organ of longevity. And if you don't have a lot of muscle mass, it's going to be much easier for your body to pack on fat and have issues with insulin management and cortisol problems. So the average person needs optimal, not adequate amounts. And I don't know if you found this, Tony, when I went to undergraduate and graduate degrees in nutrition, the protein recommendations were so low. I mean, it was like 0.6 to 0.8 grams per kilogram.
Yeah.
Now I say a gram per pound of body weight is really what the research points to. And so that means, the average...
What if they're overweight?
Yeah, especially if they're overweight, because their insulin management and cortisol is terrible. I treat a couple of patients in my practice who are around 260, 270, and their AM cortisol off the chart, metabolized cortisol off the chart, because body fat is causing you, it's a vicious cycle, because excess body fat will cause you to produce more and more cortisol, and then all the extra cortisol keeps you fat. Mm-hmm. And so if you're obese though, or seriously overweight, then you do, for your protein, you're going to do an adjusted body weight.
Right.
You wouldn't do...
Right. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, sorry about that. Yeah, no one's going to eat 275 grams of protein. That's just A, financially probably not feasible for most people, and B, that's a lot of protein.
And enough of fiber, which is also
Yes. And so obviously, 50% of the plate is veggies right then and there. But yes, so for somebody who is not obese, or you would do a gram per pound of body weight. I would say if someone is overweight or obese, then you adjust down. And you can go off your goal body weight. And so there was a great study with Navy SEALs done on low calorie diets, but higher protein intake, and they still sustained muscle mass. And I think they were eating only about 100 grams of protein per day, and they still sustained muscle mass. Mm-hmm. So certainly you can sustain it. My goal is to get you to build it, because it's easier to change your diet. For me, it's easier to change my diet than go to the gym, because I don't live in an area where there's a gym close to me. We have a loft area in our bedroom where we keep weights, which is fine. But I'm not great at working out at home. I'm much better going to a gym. Mm-hmm. But the gym is far, and I get there if I go, 2-3 days a week. Whereas diet, I can change 21 times a week in my own kitchen. It's much easier.
Yeah, and also right now, we're recording this during COVID, and everyone's in home and they can't go to the gym, which is unfortunate. So at least you can, manage your diet a little bit better by, increasing your protein, focusing on fiber-rich foods, and then also adding foods that have zinc and the, cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, stuff like that. One thing I want to ask, because I have a feeling everybody's thinking it, is your thoughts on soy during times of perimenopause, or maybe just in general, and how it affects estrogen levels.
Soy, I think, is one of the worst, scariest foods that any of us can eat. First of all, it's Roundup ready, which means it readily accepts the pesticide Roundup, which is made by a company called Monsanto, and it's sprayed heavily on our weeds. It's a weed killer. So it's really one of the most toxic foods you can eat. It totally shuts down your thyroid. It suppresses testosterone production, and it can cause early onset of puberty also. So I do not recommend soy. I think the risks far outweigh the benefits. I think, you want to, if your estrogen's really low, you can, or if it's really high, I would moderate it with flax seeds, chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, walnuts, cold water fatty fish, like wild Alaskan salmon, herring, sardines, mackerel, eggs and egg yolks. I would really help balance it that way.
Okay, and what happens if your estrogen's too low?
If your estrogen's too low, and you're young and a good candidate for it, I usually send people, I work with functional medicine doctors all over the country to, you can apply it. So estrogen is interesting. You can apply it topically, and it in a bioidentical compounded cream, and it doesn't get stored in your fat cells. Progesterone is actually better taken orally because topically it does get stored in your fat cells. So it's very interesting. But let's say you have vaginal dryness also, you can certainly insert suppositories that way and with estrogen, and that prevents the thinning of the vaginal wall. And so that's another really great treatment. Also for vaginal dryness, you can insert a capsule of GLA, which is borage oil or primrose oil. You prick the capsule and then insert it vaginally and squeeze the capsule and leave the oil there. And that will hydrate and lubricate and moisturize from within too.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, I know that that's something that definitely a lot of people going through menopause experience. So I'm sure they'll find that very helpful. Okay, so one thing that does come to mind. So I'm a big proponent of helping people find what works for the best for them, and actually kind of reducing that food fear, and not really believing that one food is better than the other, and truly thinking too, sometimes the stress that we put on eating perfectly and making sure all of our, beef is grass-fed and not eating any soy or all that, it can become so obsessive, and, that it also becomes restrictive, and then it becomes hurtful. So how do you help people find that balance, but not being obsessed with where everything has to be in, no plastic, no soy, no, everything has to be something that maybe, I don't know, I want to help people kind of find the middle ground, because I feel like right now people are probably listening to this and now are like unsure what to eat and feel like really fearful of all the foods that are out there.
Oh, okay. Well, my whole motto is don't let perfect be the enemy of done. I really, if you can access grass-fed meat, of course, that's wonderful and beautiful. And and it is a little more expensive. So I'll say if you can afford it right now, great. But, and even Walmart has grass-fed beef, and Trader Joe's and all of those things. Is it 100% grass-fed? Probably not, but that's okay. And if it's not, then still getting protein, you're still going to see the benefits, absolutely, in terms of building muscle and body composition. Same thing with veggies, it's great if you can get organic. If you can't, you're still going to have more benefits than if you aren't eating vegetables. And if you're eating vegetables versus potato chips and cheese puffs, then of course you're going to see the benefits. So, I actually, in spite of what I know, I stopped, and I'm sure you're the same, Tony, I stopped being afraid or giving it too much mental real estate, because it can drive you crazy. And I think what you want to think of for eating is, does it keep my hunger, energy, and cravings in check? How do I feel? Am I satisfied all the time? Am I hungry all the time? I think I found, at least with my clients, the biggest fear is being too hungry and just craving and feeling out of control. Mm-hmm. So a couple of foundations of, if I'm going to give a couple of general overviews of what you can do to really optimize your body composition, I always have people add things in first, and just start with breakfast. Okay. So for breakfast, I like people to get a really high protein breakfast, because protein is literally the only nutrient of protein, carbs, and fats. Protein is the only macronutrient that shuts off the hunger mechanism in the brain. It tells your hunger hormones, I'm happy, I'm satisfied, I'm done. And we know this because everyone comes to us saying they've eaten a bag of potato chips or a sleeve of Oreos, but no one ever comes to us saying they binged out on steak or salmon. It just doesn't happen. You can snort lines of chocolate chips on the counter, but nobody is planting their face into a trough of salmon or chicken. So, you want to make sure that you're getting, on average, 4 to 6 ounces of protein in the morning. This can look like a veggie omelet. This could be a cup to a cup and a half of cottage cheese. It can be a protein smoothie with 2 scoops of protein powder. It can be smoked salmon and eggs and some spinach. It can be a smoothie. I mentioned smoothie, pardon me. It could be some sausages, some lean breakfast sausages, and some fruit. So just whole food, real food. I would say if you're eating cereals and bagels and toast in the morning and you're still not satisfied, or you're crashing by 3 p.m. or your energy stinks or you're craving all the time, then just try adding protein into the mix. If you really don't want to give up bread, then add some eggs to it, have or put some cottage cheese on top, get some balance in there. Mm-hmm. Once people master breakfast and they're like, and breakfast is the best place to start because people notice it instantly. The day you've had a good breakfast, you're like, wow, it's 3:00 and like, I'm not craving that brownie or that big caramel macchiato or, just a cookie in the afternoon to pick you up. And then lunch and dinner, I say just try and get like half your plate, just visually. Try and get half your plate vegetables, a quarter protein and a quarter starch. It's kind of a good, decent balance plan. And then for snacks, you can have some jerky, some nuts, apple and peanut bars, some deli turkey slices. For the record, I snack on deli turkey regularly. I know it's not organic or perfect, but I just don't always have extra, roast turkey on hand or roast beef on hand. I also I keep cans of sardines or tuna or wild Alaskan salmon around. So it's pretty basic. I try to encourage people to just also enjoy their food. Pleasure is a really good nutrient too. And people worry about cocktails. Okay, so can we talk about booze?
Sure. Yeah, especially now.
Yeah. So booze is, listen, I could be a functional alcoholic if I wanted to. Like, I just love the way, I love cocktails. I love booze. But booze can really screw with your hormones. And if you're trying to lose body fat or you feel like you're gaining weight with all your hormone shifts, it can wreak metabolic havoc. So here's what I tell people, okay? It's never going to get you fitter or leaner, but I do have people I work with who do lose weight having drinks every night. And here's what we've taught them, right? One is you can choose booze or a starch or a dessert, but not all three, not even all two. It's one or the other. It's either booze or starch or a dessert with dinner. So a glass of wine or vodka on the rocks or bourbon on the rocks, and not like a sugary margarita with 500 million calories. But so you could have a glass of alcohol or a starch. Like for me, a starch is a sweet potato. We eat a lot of white rice. We eat white potatoes. We have some quinoa every now and then, beans or lentils. I like the cauliflower and gnocchi in place of real pasta. But if you're going to have real pasta, just measure it out. Or a dessert, right? If you want a cookie or two, you can have 2 cookies. Like Trader Joe's makes these decent gluten-free chocolate chip cookies I give to my son. I think 2 cookies is like 14 or 20 grams of carbs. It's not crazy. And I do have people eat carbs at night for better sleep. So, but just bear in mind, just watch your carbs. Know that alcohol puts the pause on fat burning. So I was going to say this, the other secret my clients do, so they watch their starch, they use alcohol in place of starch at dinner if they're going to have it, and they're also working out consistently and lifting weights, okay? So you just have to earn your carbs. That's all. You can have them, you just got to earn them. And the other thing is, with menopause and all these hormone issues, sleep is deeply affected, and blood sugar imbalances, it's a lot of cortisol. So cortisol is being produced. I like to tamp down the production. And what I do is kind of have people eat protein heavier during the day and at night have a bomb of carbs, like a cup to a cup and a half. And people are, saying, oh my God, I can't eat that many carbs. I'm going to get so fat at night. But really, think about it this way. If you are not sleeping anyway, you're going to get fat and gain a lot of weight. You'll be very insulin resistant and it will kick you in the butt. So to me, if you can conquer your hormones and tell your body to shut down, because your insulin will be higher, so your cortisol is naturally going to be lower. The two can't be elevated at the same time. They're like on a seesaw. right? So when one is high, the other is low. So you want to make sure that you are getting your insulin a little higher and you're pairing it with protein so that your blood sugar will be stable the whole time, and it will knock you out. The best sleeps I have are after a good high carb meal, and I am done. I sleep like a rock star. I wake up in the morning energized, clear-headed, feeling really good. But I don't eat carbs during the day much, just at night, except for vegetables and some fruit, but no like heavy starches, you know.
Right. So yeah, I think that this has all been really, really helpful. Is there anything else that you want to add, or any other comments before we let people know where they can find you?
Yes. So the other piece of hormonal management is stress management. Stress hormones get managed from the top down. So your mind and your thoughts actually drive your hormones. And I've had people with Hashimoto's who I've treated who don't have to take any medication once they start meditating and healing from past traumas and addressing and giving voice to their stress and their feelings. So you want to make sure that you're choosing your thoughts, that you are surrounding yourself with people who see a better version of yourself than you do, who see your unlimited potential, who are cheering you on and supporting you. And you want to make sure that you are doing some meditation. Research on monks shows that even 10 minutes of meditation a day lowers your cortisol levels and your stress and helps you sleep better, helps you be happier, clear-headed, more creative. I find I'm far more creative when I meditate. So there's a wonderful app I use to recommend called Insight Timer. It's free. There's 40,000 free meditations on it. It's fantastic.
I was actually in a study once through my yoga. The owner of the yoga studio that I go to is getting her doctorate in psychology, and she ran a test group that I was in, and we use Insight Timer. It was really awesome. I actually forgot about that app. That was like maybe a year and a half ago. And I've always been into meditation. I've switched the apps. I switched what I use because eventually, you want something different. You want something new. But I forgot about that one. That's a great one. Thank you for that. I forgot about it.
Yeah. So how did you feel after you meditated?
I mean, I had always meditated before. The part of the challenge that helped me was actually doing more yoga. So it was combining the two. So some people, everyone started at different points. And it was just to see how you feel. But yeah, I think, in general, I just felt more connected to myself, more clear-headed, more focused, more self-confidence, all of those things.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Esther. Well, this has been great. Where can people find you?
So on Instagram, I'm there as Gorgeous Ester. I'm on Facebook. I have a fan page, Ester Blum or Living Gorgeous. Either way will show up. And then go to my website, esterblum.com. I have 2 offerings for your listeners, Tony. For the first 12 people who want to reach out and pop into my schedule, I've opened up 12 spots. These are 30-minute consultations for people who are really serious about leveling up their health and really have strategic goals they want to accomplish. So you can go to esterblum.com/call, CALL, and Ester is ESTHERBLUM.com/call. And when you opt into my mailing list, you get a free ebook I just created, 3 Simple Tricks to Lose 3 Pounds this week, even when you're quarantined.
That's a good one. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Thanks for listening. If you have any follow-up questions, you could always email me, tipswithtony@gmail.com. If you're not already subscribed to the Tips with Tony podcast, please subscribe. A new episode comes out every Monday and every Wednesday. And when you're subscribed, you won't miss a beat. As always, this is Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.